Democrats weren't the only people who were mad at Rand Paul for his filibuster. Some Republicans were mad. And you know we're on the right side when the Republican and the Democratic establishment are opposed to us. So the Wall Street Journal, of course, their editorial side is tremendously conservative, or they claim to be conservative. Really, they're corporatists. They love all the multinational corporations and protect them, and the establishment. So in this case, they're like, execute U.S. citizens. Of course, it's pro-establishment. We love it. How dare you, Rand Paul? Here is the Wall Street Journal. Quote, give Rand Paul credit for theatrical timing as a snowstorm descended on Washington. The filibuster filled the attention void on Twitter and cable TV. If only his reasoning matched the showmanship. Okay, yeah, very nice, Wall Street Journal. All right, so what is the essence of your argument? I'm curious. Well, here's what they say. Calm down, Senator. How awesomely demeaning is that? Mr. Holder is right, even if he doesn't explain the law very well. The U.S. government cannot randomly target American citizens on U.S. soil or anywhere else. What it can do under the laws of war is target an enemy combatant anywhere at any time, including on U.S. soil. This includes a U.S. citizen who is also an enemy combatant. I love that, because that's the Wall Street Journal being smug and saying, ho, 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 please. You're so silly, Rand Paul. You're not very serious on this issue. And then when you break down their argument, they're like, well, we're not killing U.S. citizens. We're killing enemy combatants who are U.S. citizens. But wait a minute, you schmucks. That's the whole point. Who gets to decide that they're an enemy combatant? Okay, so if I'm the president and I decide you're an enemy combatant, can I execute you? Oh, no, I mean, they probably wouldn't. Probably. We don't do that in this country, or we didn't used to do that in this country. They give the executive branch the authority to just declare people guilty. You know, that's what they used to do. That's why we got the Magna Carta. The kings would say, I declare him to be an outlaw. They did it to Robin Hood. And then he would be executed without a trial, without anything. You could take any citizen, and the king says, I declare to you to be an outlaw, and you're done. And the Wall Street Journal and these Republican knuckleheads want to go back to that time. And by the way, so do the Democratic knuckleheads. So when Rand Paul says that undermines all of Western civilization, he's absolutely right. And the Wall Street Journal snickers, shall we execute him? Well, of course, they're not alone. Here comes warmonger John McCain, who just loves this stuff. He says, I watched some of that quote, debate, unquote yesterday. I don't think that's how you do the quote, unquote. But anyway, he says, I saw colleagues who know better come to the floor and voice some of this, some concern, which is totally unfounded. Really, John, why? I must say that the use of Jane Fonda's name does evoke certain memories with me, and I must say that she is not my favorite American, because Rand Paul had mentioned, could we kill her during the Vietnam War? But I also believe that as odious as it was, Miss Fonda acted within her constitutional rights, and to somehow say that someone who disagrees with American policy and even demonstrates against it is somehow a member of an organization which makes that individual an enemy combatant is simply false. It is simply false. But how do you know, John? You've never seen any of the evidence. So we killed Anwar al-Awlaki's 16-year-old son. How do you know he was an enemy combatant? In fact, when you ask the United States government, why did you kill him? They say, we're not going to say anything about it. But wait a minute, was it on purpose or was it an accident? We're not going to say anything about it. So you can execute 16-year-old U.S. citizens and not tell us why you executed them, on what evidence, let alone on what legal principle, and whether you even meant it or not. But don't worry, just trust the Wall Street Journal and John McCain. If the executive declares them to be an outlaw, then they can be executed without any due process. So here are some Republicans and so-called conservatives. The one thing they agree with the Obama administration on is extreme, unheard of, unconstitutional executive power over your citizens. Of course, who's going to agree with them? Here comes McCain's lapdog. Lindsey Graham. Go get him, Lindsey.
To my Republican colleagues, I don't remember any of you coming down here suggesting that President Bush was going to kill anybody with a drone. You know, I don't even remember the harshest critics of our President Bush on the Democratic side. They had a drone program back then. So what is it all of a sudden that this drone program has gotten every Republican so spun up. What are we up to here? People are astonished that President Obama, Senator McCain, is doing many of the things that President Bush did. I'm not astonished. I congratulate him for having the good judgment to understand we're at war.
That's awesome. No, I agree with the first part. You know, the Republicans are being hypocrites because they didn't stop Bush from doing any of this. But then the second part is like, this is the one thing. Lindsey Graham has been all over Obama's ass on everything, right? He's all over TV. Obama's the worst, the worst, the worst. I hate Obama. I hate Obama. Republican primary voters in South Carolina, please vote for me. But on this one, oh, he has great judgment. You know that Lindsey Graham was an attorney in the military? That was his job, an attorney. And here he is, turns around and says, well, if the president says he's an enemy combatant, well, then obviously he is. No, it's not obvious. That's why we have trials. That's why it's a democracy. But Lindsey Graham, John McCain, and the rest of the warmongers have totally forgotten that. Thank God that Rand Paul stood up to them and the Republican establishment and the Democratic establishment. They've all forgotten what the Constitution is supposed to be about. And they're all so smug. Look, they're not going to get, these guys are not going to get put on a list. You and I might get put on a list at some point. Somebody without power might get put on a list. They ain't going to go on a list, right? But you give an executive or anybody unlimited power, tick-tock, tick-tock. Only a matter of time before they start abusing that power. They already started abusing it abroad. There was a Wall Street Journal article, ironically, given their editorial stance here, where they explained, yeah, the CIA had gotten a little carried away with the drone program, and they realized after a while that they were just using so many signature strikes, they had no idea who they were killing, and it was creating so much blowback from the local populations that they decided they're going to rein it down just a little bit. And, you know, would they continue to kill people that they don't know? Yeah, but not quite as much as before. But executive power would never corrupt, right? If their ass gets put on a list one day, oh, watch them howl, howl. But you're the ones who agreed that the king, I mean the president, can put anybody on his kill list. As long as he calls him an enemy combatant, there is no check on him. You better make damn sure you're not an enemy combatant.